Hey, and welcome to the second part of reconstructing the Affinity menu system using Offcanvas Helper. And if you saw our last video, we built the menu structure off the Affinity website, as you can see here. Now, the only thing that I've done since our last video is I changed some of the padding a little bit on our items and darkened the background slightly. But it's not as pixel perfect as the to the Affinity website, but it's it's close enough for what we're doing. So one thing that we need to do in this video is we're going to look at how we can animate our list items as they appear on our menu. As you can see, we've just got a static menu at the moment appearing. And if we go to the Affinity website, you can see that as you open the menu, each item fades in and moves up. So we're going to create that in our project. Now we do have a little bit of JavaScript to write and some CSS, but it's going to be fairly easy. You'll be able to follow along. Okay, so here we have our project and our Offcanvas Helper here, and I'm going to open up our code editor. And I'm going to change our code zone to our input, as Blocks calls it, the input zone, to our page footer. And I'm going to add some script tags. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do some JavaScript and then we'll add some CSS. Okay, so inside these script tags, we're going to define a couple of variables, a couple of constants, and we're going to firstly grab the Offcanvas element itself, the Offcanvas menu. And Offcanvas Helper will automatically assign an ID to it called Offcanvas menu. So we're going to use that to get our Offcanvas menu. So I'm going to go constant, and I'm going to call this menu container. You can call it whatever you like. And so we're going to look for the document dot get. Helps if I spell it right. Document. Let's get the element. Not doing so well. Element by ID. And Offcanvas hyphen menu. Okay, and the other thing we want to do is we want to get all our lists within our Offcanvas menu. Now, if you remember, when we built our menu here, we actually used 4 unordered lists. So this entire left column is one list, and then we've got our second list, our third list, and our fourth list. And so we're going to grab all 4 of our lists. So I'm going to come back to our code here, and we're going to define another constant, and we'll call this one menu lists. And we're going to focus this within our Offcanvas block right here. So I'm going to go menu container and then query selector. And we're going to look for our unordered list tag, which is UL. Okay, so if we console log this, console.log, and we're going to look for our menu lists and preview that and move back to our browser. Let's refresh this page, and I'm going to go to our browser inspector, to our console. It's going to change this to all, and we'll see here. Nope, there we go. Okay, we're only getting one of our lists, and I can see what I did wrong there. So we need to change our query selector here from query selector to query selector all. Okay, now this will get us a nice node list of all our unordered lists, not just one of them. So we want to get all of them. What just happened there? Okay. Let's refresh our page. Actually, we'll kill all this. Refresh our page. And there we have our node list. Right here we see our 4 unordered lists. Awesome, that's exactly what we wanted to see. That makes a little bit more sense. Okay, next thing we want to do is we want to add a class, a custom class to each one of these nodes. So I'm going to do that here. So we've got our node list here, which is menu list. And then I'm going to go for each. And this is where our syntax gets a little bit tricky. For each, and we want to, what could we call this? We'll call it menu item. And because this is going to run a function, curly brackets. Okay, for each, we're going to add a class. So what we've got here is that for every menu, it's got the node list of menu items, and then for each one of those, it's going to go run through and add a class to each one. So we're going to tell it what class we want. So for each menu item, we want to add a class dot add, and let's call this class reveal in. How about that? Okay, we've still got our console log, so we can have a look here. If we go back to the browser, let's clear this, refresh, and if we open our node list again, we'll see our 4 nodes, our 4 list items, and we'll see our class reveal in. Awesome, that's exactly what we want to see. Okay, back to our code editor. We're going to now add some CSS. So we're going to change our input zone to additional CSS. And we're going to create some CSS for that custom class we created, which was reveal-in. And so that's our unordered list that we've added that class to, but we want to now add some styling to our list items within that list. So we're going to reveal in, we're going to do a space, and then we're going to do li for the list item tag. Okay, if that made sense. So I'm going to set the opacity to 0 because we want to start our items as invisible, and then they're going to fade in. And we're going to run some animation keyframes, some CSS animation. So we can define a name for our animation. And let's call that reveal. And you can call these whatever you like. Let's set a duration, animation duration, 1000 milliseconds, which is 1 second. And let's also, we don't want our animation to go backwards and forwards. We just want it to go in one direction from start to finish and stop, and just one time. So we can do animation fill mode and forwards. Okay, that's all the CSS that we need to add for our custom class there. We're going to now define our animation. So we can do that with keyframes, at keyframes, and then use the name that we defined up here, which is reveal. And we'll do some curly brackets. Now we want to define our opacity at 0% of the animation as 0, and at 100% of the animation as the animation runs to being fully visible, an opacity of 1. So we're going to do 0%, and again we need curly brackets for this. I'm going to set opacity to 0, and at 100% we want our opacity to be 1. There we go. All right, let's have a look and see what we've got. Okay, we see nothing yet. Now, probably if we extend the length of our animation, let's make this 10,000 milliseconds or 10 seconds. Okay, we're seeing our animation as our opacity level slowly animates from 0 to 1. The problem that we do have now is that on page load, as soon as the page loads, it's applying that class and starting the animation. So even if we haven't opened our menu, the animation has already started. And then when the animation is finished its run. When we open and shut the menu, the animation doesn't restart. And that is not the effect that we have on the Affinity website. So every time you open it, you get that animation playing through. So we're going to fix that, and we're going to use a thing called event listeners. And the cool thing is, if we go to the Bootstrap documentation under Offcanvas, you will see that Offcanvas actually has event listeners that we can use, and we can set some trigger points from when the Offcanvas hides to when it opens. And so what we're going to do is actually copy this part of the code here. We don't need the variable above it because we've already got that. And we're going to come back to our code editor. We're going to come back to our page footer. And just after these variables here, let's tidy this up a little bit. We're going to paste our event listener. Now I'm going to make some changes here to suit what we've got in our code. I'm going to change my Offcanvas to be a menu container because that's grabbing our Offcanvas menu there. So I'm just going to modify that. And we don't want this to be when it's hidden. We want this to be when the Offcanvas is shown. Now inside our event listener, we're going to move our code that we created here that added our custom class. And let's just indent that to okay, make it make sense. Let's get rid of our console log. Okay, there we have it. So what we have now with our event listener is our custom class will only be added to our menu items when the Offcanvas is shown. So let's have a look. Okay, there we go. We haven't broken anything yet, which is great. The problem we do have though is that our animation is not restarting when we open the menu item again. It only runs once on page load. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another event listener for when Offcanvas closes. So we can duplicate what we have here. So I'm going to copy the whole event listener and paste it, and we're going to change our event listener from show on the second one here to hidden, or yeah, we'll change it to hidden, and we want to remove instead of add. So we're going to change our add to remove. So what we have now is when our Offcanvas menu opens, all our list items get their class added, and when our Offcanvas menu closes, then we remove our custom class. Okay, let's have a look. So we open, our animation applies, we close it, when we open it again, our animation restarts. Okay, brilliant. Next thing we want to do is we want to add that effect where as they fade in, they move upwards. If we take a look again at the Affinity website, you'll see that each menu item comes upwards. And so we're going to do that by adding some CSS. So I'm going to change the input zone on our code editor back to our additional CSS zone. And what I'm going to do in our animation here at 0%, I'm going to add another style which is called transform. And I'm going to use translate Y. Now that's the Y is the Y-axis, which is vertical. X is horizontal axis from left to right. So we want to translate our Y-axis, and we want our item to start a certain size lower and animate to its normal position. And so in here we're going to define the size. And let's start with 4rem and see how that looks. All right. Nice and slow. And I'm only keeping it slow so you can visually see what's actually happening. What I love about doing it this way is that none of our headers are actually moving within that space. Our menu items are. Awesome. One of the other things we want to also change, if we have a look back at the Affinity website, that when you open up, they don't all move in at the same time. They're all staggered. But what we can tell is that from each menu item, from each list item, the first, second, and third come in unison. So when Learn comes in, Business comes in, and About Us comes in. When the User Forum comes in, Education comes in, and Newsroom comes in, and the same with our left column. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some CSS that's going to target the children number within our unordered list. And we're going to set a delay for each one. Okay, so we're going to go back to our code editor. We're already in our CSS input zone. And we're going to add just a little bit more CSS above our keyframes here. So we're going to do our reveal in, li for our list item. We're going to do a semicolon, and then we're going to add something called nth child. And then in brackets, we can add the number we want to target. So we're going to do our first child, our first list item. And then our curly brackets, we're going to set an animation delay. And let's just set a delay. We'll try 100 millisecond delays. Now, we have a maximum of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 children elements inside our list. So I'm going to have 7 of these. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to change our nth child number progressively. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we're going to offset our delays. So our first one is a delay of 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700. Okay, let's have a look. Actually, it's probably a little bit hard to tell at that speed, so we're going to reduce our speed back to the 1000 milliseconds. Okay, and there we can see our offset or our delay. Brilliant. Now we can play around too with these to get the speed that we want. Say we want this to move a little bit faster. Because if we go and look at the Affinity website, it does kind of snap into place. Let's have a look at this in the browser. Awesome. And we might decide that these are coming in a little bit too far. So what we can do is under here in our keyframes and our translate Y, we could drop this a little further. So instead of 4 rems, we could do 2. Preview that, come back to our browser. Awesome. So there we have it. We have animated our Affinity replica menu system with Offcanvas Helper. Pretty straightforward, some basic JavaScript and a little bit of CSS and CSS animation. Okay. Brilliant. I think that's it for this video. Have a fantastic day.